We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes. This season, we're covering how to cook that with Ann Reardon, one of the top YouTube baking channels in the world. We've been taking a trip through the years with Ann from 2015 to present and sampling some of her most popular videos, from giant candy and tiny foods to 200-year-old recipes and TikTok trends. On today's menu, we are going to be digesting our time with how to cook that in Ann. But first, we're going to talk about what we've been up to in our kitchens, cooking, eating, all that jazz. What about you, Justine? What have you been up to?
All that jazz. That's what it made me think of. I mean, like, as I said last time, I was a bit injured. I did have PT this weekend. But so I've had a lot of pad thai this week, both making and ordering, because it makes me feel happy.
There you go.
It's easy to make and have and make vegan and gluten-free, and just it's a happy food for me. So I just loaded up on pad thai this week. I got nothing really special to talk about. Oh, I did a coworker of mine sent me his complete hot sauce line that he's created.
Oh, wow. You're friends with Keith Habersberger?
That's right. No, I'm not, but I wish, kind of. It's called Figo Foods. Like, you can go on Instagram, FIGO Foods. Probably only doing stuff around him in New York right now, but I am very special that he mailed all the way over to me in LA.
Nice.
Oh. All right, what about you, Amanda?
Well, I also have a current injury, so I can't do a lot on my feet.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I had an MRI this week. We get results next week. Woohoo! So not making a lot unless it's, my typical, like, frozen dinners or whatever. I did get some salad kits that I can have for lunches at work this week. I just picked up from the grocery store yesterday. Yay for pickup, so I don't have to hurt my foot by traipsing through a grocery store for hours. But this last week was my husband Jeremy's birthday, and his mom made a 3-layer German chocolate cake for him.
Oh,
Ooh.
yes.
Which is always, like, that's his favorite cake. So we have that for his birthday every year. And there is one piece left in the fridge for me, and I'm very excited. It's my treat after we record.
That's great. I love German chocolate cake.
Yeah, and she makes it all from scratch, so it's excellent. What about you, Meg?
I made pretzel and potato chip moon pies by everyone's favorite Sohla El-Waylly. So in typical Sohla fashion, she likes to incorporate snack foods into this recipe. It's really fun. You just blitz up some pretzels and potato chips into the butter cookie dough, and you make a little sandwich with a marshmallow in the middle. Her recipe says to dip it in dark chocolate. I dipped it in milk chocolate just because I prefer milk chocolate. Don't at me. And then you either put pretzel salt or flaky sea salt on top. I opted for flaky sea salt. It was really good. I liked it a lot. I shared it with my parents, and I went to a small get-together at a friend's house, and everyone loved it. Several people asked for the recipe. I would also highly recommend it. It was really good.
Nice. What was the filling on yours?
Marshmallow.
It was marshmallow.
Ooh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Not related to the cookies, I also want to extol the virtues of the humble spork. I recently bought 4 nice sporks, and
Wow.
I just don't think I ever need to use forks again. Spoons, yes. Like, a spork isn't so good for soup or ice cream, but it kind of does the job for everything you would need a fork for, but better.
I just imagined you just bought these gold-plated sporks. I don't know why.
No, they're just, metal sporks as opposed to, say, the KFC spork, which I think is the only other place I've seen a spork before.
They always remind me of elementary school lunches for some reason. I feel like that's always where we had sporks.
All utility.
No, that reminded me, I was at a family event this past week, and my in-laws had these aluminum like quote unquote disposable cups instead of plastic cups to try to be more environmentally sound because they're more easily recyclable. And I have to say, as someone who loves a cold drink, it was really great at holding like the ice and the coldness of the water that I was drinking.
Oh, nice.
So those were
That's
cool.
cool.
And I also picked up some of those yesterday from this grocery. I haven't used them yet, but I'm excited to. We're always trying to be better at recycling and reducing our carbon footprint. So
Yeah.
and then we also wanted to let you all know, lovely listeners, that we now have a newsletter. And you can sign up for that at podappetitpodcast.com/newsletter. So check that out. There will be a link in the show notes as well. But you can keep more up to date with what we are up to in between episodes.
And you'll never miss an episode because we'll let you know when one has come out.
Yes. Find out all our fun news. All right. So jumping into the menu for today, we are digesting how to cook that.
Woo!
I don't know why today. Normally when we say digest, I'm just like, oh yes, digest. Today, when I was writing the script, I instantly was like, stomach acids. And I was like, why? Why am I don't know why. Maybe it's because Anne is a food scientist. So I was
Oh, that makes sense.
yeah, I was thinking of it in more of like the literal way than our figurative digest.
Shall we start with some of the things we liked, our favorite videos that we watched, or type of video? I liked her more impressive bakes. So, for example, the makeup birthday cake, I thought that was quite impressive. Anything where she makes a realistic type of is it cake creation, I find particularly interesting. Some videos that we didn't talk about on the podcast, but she's made a realistic guitar or a Subway sandwich or a shoe. So these sort of illusion cakes I find pretty interesting. I also enjoyed her mini bakes. So the mini wedding cake that she made. Anything where she creates a bake and I think to myself, wow, how did she make that? These were some of my favorite videos of hers.
Yeah, I definitely agree about the mini bakes. You just have to have a whole scene and all the little bits and parts. And while, no, it's not something that I'm going to make myself just for pure entertainment value, I think that was really impressive. And along with that, even though the one that we watched, it did not look appetizing, but the 200-year-old wedding cake, I also found that entertaining and just like the way that she was doing like all of the bits and pieces of it to make it come together.
Well, besides from the mini wedding cake, I have, I think, conflicting views with the both of you, but I think that's also great because Anne does such a variety of videos. There's something for everyone. I'm not so much interested in the realistic cake decorating, cake construction front, but I did really like the cake rescue episode and the debunking video and the mini. I just felt like, especially with the cake rescue and the debunking videos, that I was really learning something, then particularly learning something that was within my reach, at my level. And then with the mini, I just, very impressed at how many tiny kitchen tools that there are in the world.
So cute.
The mini egg yolks.
I agree with you on the cake rescue. I did like that one as well. I know Meg and I had differing opinions on that episode, but I think it also speaks to our different skill levels in the baking department.
Yeah, I guess I'm on the fence here because, the cake rescues were not among my favorites, but Justine, you also mentioned the food hack debunking. Those I would classify under some of my favorites as well. I do feel like I learned a little bit. I feel like these debunking videos are the ones where Anne really flexes her food scientist muscles. So it's interesting to hear her talk through the process, the methodology. I like that she recreates the original poster's methodology, even if it's completely ludicrous, just to prove step by step, like why this doesn't work, but on the other hand, why this would work. And the cake rescue ones, I'm entertained by seeing poorly executed cakes. That's why Nailed It is a popular show, or why Cake Rex was a website that had been going on for, I don't know, decades. Maybe it still exists. It probably does. So seeing horrible cakes is funny. And yeah, I just don't feel like I would ever implement any of her solutions, and God forbid I'm ever in that situation where I made such an awful cake in the first place.
Did we have any criticisms? I know we really did like a broad view of her channel.
Well, so the place where I have the most criticism is in her approach to, kind of her meta approach to YouTube, which is what we've talked about a bit already. She really has a bee in her bonnet about the algorithm. I imagine her saying this with a capital T and a capital A every time she mentions it. But she really lays into YouTube and other content creators for creating and prioritizing and promoting content that she deems is dangerous or deceptive or misinformation. But on the other hand, we talked about this a bit, especially in our last episode, there's a little bit of irony here because she is exploiting the same algorithm to promote her channel for her own personal gain. So it's a little bit of rules for thee, but not for me type of thing. I do think that she genuinely believes that her content has more value and more use than some of these, say, hacking videos. And yeah, that might be true. On the one hand, I do agree with her to an extent. But on the other hand, I think that she displays a little bit of lack of self-awareness and that she is a pretty big cog in this machine as well.
Yeah, I would even go as to say, yeah, maybe they're making videos that are also entertaining, and not every video has to be straight up just informative.
I totally agree with that. And I would also classify Ann's videos as entertainment. We can talk about this a bit more later when we talk about the recipes themselves, but I learned little things in the content that I've watched of hers, but I don't feel more equipped to make a cake. I think when we get to the potluck, I think I'm going to search for one of her 10 easy peanut butter recipe type videos. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a very instructional channel. I do think it's an entertainment channel. And especially if you look at her, I would say especially her most recent videos, she is clearly following trends. She is jumping on bandwagons for what is popular right now. And you can see it in the content itself. You can see it in how she titles things in a kind of clickbait way. And even the thumbnails themselves, you'll notice a lot lately, there are these thumbnail images of people pulling these outrageous expressions, or she has big scare quotes like 34 deaths in her thumbnails. And I'm just like, okay, well, you are exploiting exactly the same metrics that promotes other YouTube videos that you're critical of.
Yeah, and I do think that's something we've even talked about from the first episode of this, is especially the writing of the trends, is having looked at something from 2015 to 2022. There were different times, I can't remember exactly which one, but I know at one point, Justine, you were like, oh, hey, remember when that was everywhere on the internet for a week? Apparently that's where this video landed too. Just that kind of stuff where it is. And I agree with you Meg, of not for thee, but for me kind of way of it. I'll admit, other than the chef show, this might be my least favorite season that we've done. Just because I never...
there's nothing worse than chef show.
That'll always be our floor.
Yeah,
right?
That is the low-hanging fruit. Yeah. But I guess everything else that we've watched, I've wanted to watch more, or I have watched more, or I've wanted to get a cookbook and look at it, or I've wanted to explore more, in some way, whether it was a guest or someone who just popped up for a minute, or, ooh, now I want to watch this other video series. And I'll admit, I didn't I didn't feel the need to keep watching more because nothing fully, I mean, other than like the little mini one that we all liked, none of them really fully grabbed me. And I do feel like, and I don't know if it's a cultural difference with her being Australian, but the nitpicking on other content creators, I think, kind of bugs me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just, and I don't think she's trying to be malicious, but it's just not necessarily my cup of tea to be actively complaining about the platform that you're on in the video that is showing what you're doing. And that did, over all 7 years, come up over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say comparing her to another YouTube baker who also follows the trends but has a slightly sunnier demeanor would be like Rosanna Pansino.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Speaking of trends, I do feel like that her tendency to jump on these bandwagons to recreate trends, I do think that that negatively impacts the watchability or rewatchability of her content. Maybe this is one reason why you didn't find it very successful for you, Amanda, and also a reason why I've seen my own viewership of her channel drop off, is that all these trends are these time capsules. Like you were saying, we'll watch this video and we're like, oh yeah, I remember 2015. You know, this is not evergreen content. It's something that might have worked well in the moment, but when you go back to it, oftentimes it's like, oh yeah, that thing, that's totally irrelevant now. And I do think that it would be better if she just did more of her own thing. Like Rosanna Pansino's content, I find a lot more evergreen. It kind of works all the time. It's not this outdated, aged thing where you can put a very specific timestamp on it. And I do think I watched the most of her channel around, let's say, 2019, 2020. But then once you've seen that type of video once, it's kind of like, okay, I'm good. You know, like let's bring something new to the table.
Yeah, I guess it's not like I actively like disliked this and I'm like, how dare we? Why did we watch this or anything? It's just, it didn't grab me the way some of the other things that we have covered on the podcast have. And I mean, I know this is kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but like one of the questions we always ask in these digests is, would you recommend the show? And I feel like I would be more likely to recommend a specific video here or there, as opposed to subscribe and watch every single episode, which is how I had experienced her before. Is every now and then Justine would send me a link for, oh, hey, I think this is an interesting video of hers. And so that's how I had experienced her in the past, is like here and there seeing a video that I found interesting. But again, even when I watched those, at no point was I like, oh, and now I want to subscribe. Like, and that's, I mean, clearly she is successful and she is using that algorithm and she tells people to use the algorithm to, to her advantage. It just, yeah, I just think personally for me, it's just not as grabbing as some of the other things that are out there.
Yeah, I've tried to examine all the reasons why I'm rubbed the wrong way by her talking about the algorithm and the way she does. And I think I've been able to pinpoint some of those things that I've already mentioned. But another thing is it almost seems like sour grapes sometimes. It's just like, why are these videos getting more views when mine aren't? And clearly my content is so much better. And one, that's not the best look. And two, she has a extremely popular channel. So sometimes I'm just kind of like, what exactly is your deal? Or do you just like complaining about YouTube?
Well, and that's why I was wondering, is it a cultural difference? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, she just seems super fed up lately.
It does seem that way, yeah. And yeah. I don't want to make broad generalizations, but she is a little bit older than we are. And I do think a tiny bit of this is maybe not, you know, being one of the hip youths, or maybe not fully grasping the way some of these technologies work, because it's complicated. It is. And I think a lot of people who use YouTube or Instagram or Twitter or other social media feel like they know exactly how it works. But if that were true, then literally everyone would have viral content, you know? Like, there's certain things about the algorithm that are purposefully not transparent to the end user or to the creator in order to try to stop everyone from exploiting loopholes or gaming the system, where she takes this attitude of like, I know exactly how the algorithm works. And it's like, well, you can look at trends, you can look at data, you can look at your own viewer numbers, but no, you don't know exactly how it works. By design, you do not know exactly how it works.
I think, like you said, just rubbing you the wrong way. I think that's, and like there are times that I really like her, like the way, like with the giant chocolate stuff, which I know was early on, but the way she specifically like went out of her way to have those go to people who were doing great like charities throughout the world. And
yeah,
so it's like,
definitely.
There are parts of what she's doing that I really respect.
I would say the other side of that same coin is that when she's not complaining about YouTube, I find her personality to be my favorite part of her channel. I like Ann herself. I think that her personality is nice. She has a very calm and calming demeanor. She's well-spoken. She's also funny and personable. This probably isn't a draw for her Australian viewers, but I enjoy listening to her accent. And I also really enjoy when she goes into food scientist mode. She puts on her analytical hat, and I think she'd be a great educator. She communicates really well. She explains sometimes complex concepts in a very easy to understand way. So overall, I really enjoy her personality.
Oh, yeah. I watched this video of hers that was explaining, you know, a difference between like sugar and agave and maple syrup and like what it does, how your body reacts to it. And it was like really scientific and actually really informative.
That's cool.
And I think, yeah, when she leans on the science, maybe that's her route, because I'm like,
yeah,
it's great.
Well, and I don't know that any of the ones that we covered were super sciencey, but the ones that I have seen like that are the ones that I find more engaging, because that seems to be what is engaging her as well. Like, I mean, I know it's a little cliche to say, but the whole idea of like, write what you know, like, you know, make the YouTube video of what you know and what you're passionate about. Like, your passion is always going to come through.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great way to strengthen her channel instead of copying trends, which is what she's doing. If she really just leaned into her strengths of, hey, look, I'm a food scientist. I can explain the science behind why this sugar works and this one doesn't. I think that would be a great direction for her to focus on.
Speaking of copying trends, can we talk about the video she dropped pretty recently to us recording?
Was that the cupcake one?
Yeah. I think it was muffins or cupcake. I actually didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it either.
I just
saw that it was 3 different, like, basic level, medium level, insane
I literally
level.
passed it in my feed because I thought it was Epicurious.
Yeah, that is Epicurious's thing.
I saw it again in my timeline. I was just like, oh my God, it's Ann Reardon. It's not Epicurious. And so she's got this new format now where the thumbnail looks exactly like Epicurious videos. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's something both good and bad about being adaptable in that way of like, she's not so stuck in one place that she's not willing to adapt with the times. Yet at the same time, she's so adaptable, there is not always a consistency. Does that make sense? I just think of like, it's not like all of her thumbnails, there's like a consistency to the design of it, like that kind of thing.
Right, you wouldn't know it's her unless her face is on it, basically.
Exactly. Yes, I don't mean like she is not a consistent person, but like consistency in the design. And I feel like we even found that as we went through the years when we were pulling the episode descriptions so that we had them, and those would also change depending on what SEO was at the time and things like that. And I think there is something to having a consistency in those designs so that at least it is branded to some extent. and I guess that's where it is confusing, because until we started watching more, I didn't realize at first that this was the person Justine had sent videos to me of, like, because there was not that consistency in the design of, or the editing of the videos until things got, it's just, and it isn't even like there's a clear, like, oh, okay, so she became more experienced and then the style changed to this. Because you see that, like, even like web comics that I've read, the style will change, but you can see the change as it goes through, and it becomes consistent, whereas I don't feel like you had that in her videos.
No, yeah, and we mentioned, like, and then halfway through our watch list, she changed to, like, a tasty editing format. I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
I have another particular criticism of the older episodes, and it's something we had brought up on the time. They are really hard to follow, and she'll just, like, throw out things, of course, like, now take out your molding gel.
Yeah. I think this speaks once again to why I think that these are more for entertainment than for instruction. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of missing steps. And yes, she does direct you to her website where there is usually that missing context. But if you take only the YouTube video, often that's not enough to execute on the recipe. And it kind of reminds me of that comic where it's like, how to draw an owl. Step 1, draw 2 circles. Step 2, draw the rest of the owl. Yeah. And that's how I feel about a lot of these videos.
It's like a technical bake from Jabibo.
Yeah, it kind of is.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back with more thoughts on Ann Reardon and how to cook that. All right, so we've given some criticisms. I know at the top we shared our favorite episodes. We all sort of landed on the little tiny mini cakes. What were our least favorite episode or episodes?
My least favorite episode was the 200-year-old wedding cake, because I was like, why bother making this monstrosity? I was just the whole time being like, this looks disgusting. But, like, if she had picked something else that looked, like, better, maybe I would have been for it. But this, like, bake in particular, at the end, I'm like, why? And then you got those kids being like, yay, it looks great. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. You're lying. So top tier, that was my least favorite. And then, like I said, like the makeup birthday cake, I'm not really into cake decorating and construction with fondant unless it's like nailed it. So that's just for me personally.
Okay. Yeah, I think my least favorite was probably the cake rescue from Failed It to Nailed It. I've already kind of said why it didn't so much appeal to me, but also the edible chocolate art supplies wasn't my favorite, simply because it was techniques that we had seen before. It was very inapproachable. From step 1, it was like, and start by doing some minor woodworking. And so I was immediately noped out of it. We talked about how grossed out we were by the fact that there was still chalk dust in the chalk tins, which was just gross. So I think that was probably tied for bottom for me.
Yeah, that one was my bottom for sure, largely because there was chalk dust, and I can't get over it. I just can't. Yep. I don't want to eat chalk.
I was preparing to watch a video for our previous episode, and I somehow had the wrong link in my notes, and it was once again the link to the chalk art supplies. So I clicked the link, and I was like, I have to see this damn chalk again? What is going on? She can't be doing this again, can she? But no, she wasn't. It was my fault.
It's a good stance to have, Amanda. You don't want to eat chalk.
I know it's controversial.
I only want to eat edible things.
I guess.
I've already said I didn't feel like I wanted to seek out anything else of Ann's based on our watching. But what about you guys? Did you do any additional Ann content?
Just over the course of the last few years, yes, I have, because I subscribed to her channel at some point. I'm guessing probably somewhere around 2019. I am not signed up for notifications. Sorry, Anne. So it's one of those channels that I don't watch religiously.
Every single one. Yeah.
Exactly. But occasionally a video will get served to me where I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I do really think my viewership of her content in general has greatly dropped off and declined since 2019, 2020. So I do think I'll watch more of her videos again in the future, but maybe not completely intentionally. Like, I don't know if I'm going to go to YouTube and think to myself, I'd really like to watch how to cook that right now. I think it's more likely I'll go to YouTube, I'll get recommended a how to cook that video by the algorithm, and I'll be like, okay, that looks interesting. So that's kind of my feelings.
Yeah, I feel the same. Literally, she's like in my feed. But I think also I have to give myself a few months, because even I think when I hyper focus on someone, like when we did Sweet Heat, I'm like, I don't want to watch any additional Sweet Heat right now because I'm thinking so much about it. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how I feel in like a few months. But like generally, I also did not watch every single video. Like, oh, cool, checking my subscribe tab, knew how to cook that today, get it on. I'd be like, just judge by the title and thumbnail and be like, you know, and then decide from there if I wanted to watch it. I did read through her cookbook. I looked at every single recipe, and they all look super challenging.
Yes.
Great.
I am very curious to see how our potluck goes, because I had the exact same experience. Well, we watched all the videos that we watched, and of those videos, none of those recipes jumped out at me. I'm like, I'm not going to make a single one of these things. Time to check out her cookbook, Crazy Sweet Creations. They're all really complicated, so I don't think I'm going to make anything from the cookbook either, which leaves me to wonder, what am I going to make? But she does have some videos that are like 10 cake mix recipes, 10 peanut butter recipes, 10 lemon recipes. I think that's where I'll be sourcing what I make for the potluck.
Yes, same thing for me. I have found something on her YouTube channel that looks relatively simple. It's still a thing that I could mess up, but like it's not oh my god, this everything in her cookbook has like 5 different separate parts that all come together.
Yeah, I just feel like there's no middle ground. Like, it's either something extremely complicated that I feel like is outside of my ability and comfort zone, or it's something so easy that I don't have much interest in making it. Because when I try new recipes, I do like to try to challenge myself a little bit. Not every day. I'm not going to challenge myself every single day I make dinner. Like, no, thank you. But if I'm making something special for the podcast, I usually want to try to impress a little bit. But there's this hyper complex recipe, or add Coke to a cake mix, to a box cake mix. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that either. So
there is one very simple recipe in her cookbook that I was like, Amanda, if you want to do this, it's the watermelon cake, where you just slice a watermelon so it's like a disc, like a pizza, and put frosting on top of it. Watermelon cake.
Okay.
I think you might have to make the frosting, but that's it.
Okay.
You have to grow the watermelon.
Well, thank God. Well, no, I was going to say, I think my mother-in-law's growing watermelons, but I think she already ate the one that grew this year, so.
Yeah, I think watermelon season is just ending.
Yeah, what do you think of the recipes, Amanda?
I will be honest, I just pulled it up. I've not read through them all, but if you two are saying that they're challenging and that they're not, this terrifies me. Yeah, especially with, there's only like, 5 recipes listed under easy? Fun, easy desserts. There's 6 things. We'll see if I can make any of those, or if I will also be looking to YouTube. You know what? I'll just redo last season's potluck. I'll remake the malt cake.
See, I think you sell yourself short, Amanda. I think that you can do way better, and do way better than the Nailed It video. Like, yeah.
Well, thank you.
You can. I know you can.
So yeah, I will, I just downloaded the book, so I'll take a closer look and see.
Yeah, check out the milkshakes. That might be something you like.
Yeah, you like milkshakes a lot, too.
I do like milkshakes. And there's a red velvet cake. Ooh.
Yeah, you basically take a piece of cake, and put it on top of a milkshake.
Cool. I'll take a look at particularly these ones that are listed as like the fun, easy desserts and see if there's one of those that I can pull off.
Yeah, I would love to hear what you think in the next episode.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be making anything under the chapter art on a plate. Or show off pastries. Final part of the digest. Are we going to recommend this show?
I wrote this down in my notes, and it was before we talked, but I feel like it's our consensus. With this YouTube channel, you don't have to watch everything.
Yes.
Yeah, just to echo what y'all have already said, I would recommend specific videos to specific people. I don't know if I would blanket recommend this channel.
Yeah, but I will say, like, I was surprised at some things. I had never watched a mini baking thing before, even though there are lots of them. So if folks want to go outside their comfort zone, she's got a lot to choose from.
I'm not going to unsubscribe from her channel.
No.
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've had quite a stirring conversation today. So now we're going to head on over and see what is on our back burner today. All right. So we've got a few things. First up, it was, speaking of Ann Reardon and TikTok videos, and there was this creepy TikTok video that came across me on Twitter, of all places. There's a lot of ingenuity in this video. It's basically like stop motion. Like there's a chicken breast, and the chicken breast is cooking all the food.
I couldn't get too far into it. It's too gross.
Creeping along on the counter. There's like dancing shrimp, and it's terrifying. It's absolutely
it's inching
terrifying.
along like
and I
a
had
worm.
to share it with all of my pals because, of course, because I showed it to my husband, and he was just like, "Yeah, that's creepy." And I was like, "Fine, I'll send it to my friends."
Yeah, It's very uncanny in the worst possible way. I retweeted this on our Pod Appétit Twitter account, and Michael Hill replied and said, "All I can think of is the crawling steak from Poltergeist." Mm-hmm. To which I say, yes, that is exactly what this is like.
Mm-hmm. And it was so, like, yeah, just the chicken being like sentient and making itself into food creeped me out so much that, like, at the end when it's showing what the food is, I was like, nope, I don't want it. I have no desire.
No one wants to see a raw chicken fillet the skin off of a tomato. It's just, no.
Yeah, I noped out on that first. I was,
Yep, you were wise, Justine. Very wise.
You can't give me nightmares. You're not allowed.
The stop motion animation raw chicken can't hurt you.
It can.
So next up, we have The Big Brunch, which we've been very excited for, is finally coming here in the U.S. to HBO Max. It will be coming out on November 10th.
Can you remind us what The Big Brunch is?
Yes, it's going to be a competition show with our friend Sohla El-Waylly and Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek. All the people we love in one place.
This looks really fun. Dan and Sohla have started doing some cross-promotional stuff on YouTube. Like, they made brunch margaritas together on Instagram, I meant to say, not YouTube. And yeah, I'm excited for this. It's got a lot of people I like. Should be fun.
We're looking forward to it. Speaking of other people that we really enjoy watching, Priya is her series On the Job is coming back for season 2. And we had talked about some of her videos and back burners before from the On the Job series. So I thought this definitely looked interesting. She put like a trailer on her Instagram, and we'll have the link in the show notes.
First episode's out. I watched it.
Yep.
Oh, is it out already? I'm slow.
The first episode is called How to Feed New York City's Largest Middle School, and Priya goes to, as it says, New York City's largest middle school and speaks with the cooks in the cafeteria there. It's a really fascinating video.
We've mentioned Great British Bake Off, or Jabibo, a few times throughout the episode, and partially that's because it's back, guys. The first episode landed a few days before we recorded. So yeah, do we have any thoughts on this first episode of here in the US, Collection 10?
Yes. It feels like their casting is a bit predictable, but also I like it. But I'm like, there's the young one, there's the this one, there's the that one. Yep. The one with the crazy colored hair. Like,
yep.
The guy who has a sort of macho job that you wouldn't expect to be a cook, that type of thing.
Right. The guy who's kind of like the Jurgen. Like
Yes, but this time his name is Janusz.
But they actually are all really good bakers this season, it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I said the name of the person who was going to win and the person who was going to go home. I had figured that out by the time they got there. But none of them did I feel like, oh, they probably shouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, no one that I'm like, okay, then this next episode, this person should go home. And then, like, this person will probably leave around episode 4. They're really competent, and it makes me excited to see what their other skill sets are. So next time, and this will be old news for you guys listening, but it'll be Biscuit Week for us. And then, of course, going forward, see who's good at bread, see who's good at this or that. It makes me excited.
I'm excited, too. I enjoyed this first episode a lot. It looks like a good batch of bakers. My prediction for the final 3 are Janusz, Sandro, and Sabira. I think those are going to be the top 3. They seem to really stand out in this episode, at least. I'm definitely excited. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. And also, you were talking about how it's sort of predictable casting. I feel like aside from the earliest seasons, often the older contestants get kicked out. I feel like usually the grandma type character tends to get the boot pretty early on. And I'm excited by the older women in this series. It looks like I don't think they're going to get booted soon, which I'm enjoying. Maybe that won't be quite as predictable. I would like to see them go far.
Right, because the one woman said that she liked, contemporary flavor, or like she liked traditional flavors, and I was like, ooh. But then her flavors were like excellent and good and popping, and they loved it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that one with the tamarind filling, that looked so nice.
Yeah, they definitely seemed fresh in both like their takes. Because the one who liked traditional flavors was the one with the pink hair. So you're like, well, she can't be incredibly traditional, or she wouldn't be there with pink hair. Like, taking the Lizzie spot from last season. So, but yeah, you also, in the judging of their food, at no point did you get, oh, this is taking me back to the 70s or anything like that, which you hear a lot.
Yeah. And I was really happy that the showstopper wasn't a super weird thing they had to make.
Yeah, don't make a bust of yourself, for example.
No, it was just a cake. And honestly, I was kind of surprised how non-showstoppery the showstopper was.
It was achievable, but it felt like, for day one.
Yes. It also, I was like, oh, this isn't fantastical. But then I was like, well, no, this is called a home bake. Not just because it's the shape of their house, but like this is the first episode. I was like, okay, I like that this is a little more the basics for the first episode instead of making it impossible.
Totally.
The producers must have been listening to us.
Yeah, there we go. We told them, don't do moving parts on the first episode. I'm also very intrigued to see who ends up becoming Noel's bestie in this season. I don't feel like there was anybody in particular that
no front runners yet.
No front runners yet. So I'm very intrigued to see who
he did like Sabira's monkey story. He seemed quite enamored by that one. He said it was his favorite conversation of the tent that day. So maybe those two will be besties by the end.
All right. Well, please share your thoughts on any of these things that we've discussed today on the back burner or how to cook that. And you can always reach out to us. We'll shout you out here in this spot right here on the podcast. So thank you to Raven for reaching out to us. And speaking of Jabibo, she shared a fantasy Great British Bake Off league with us. So other people are just as obsessed as we are. So we're not alone. And then we also wanted to say thanks to those who looked at Meg's coconut curry and fried tofu, peanuts, and cilantro. Wow. So thank you to Janelle Wilke and resident mother of the podcast, Mary.
Janelle, who did our logo.
Yes, Janelle did our logo art, which we love and is amazing. So everyone should check out her Instagram. She's got really cool illustrations. And she has a podcast, a Dungeons & Dragons podcast. We'll drop a link to that in the show notes, too.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you to those who have already signed up for the newsletter to see what we are doing and making. And then if you also want to keep up with us on other social media platforms, we've talked a lot about YouTube this episode, so check us out on YouTube. We're trying to get up there so we get to be Pod Appétit instead of random numbers. So
it's true.
Our goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're pretty far from that, but you can help us reach that goal. So go to YouTube and subscribe to us there. We post all of our episodes on YouTube. So if you prefer to listen to your podcasts on that platform, we're right there.
Thank you to everybody who had done so since our last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening to the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to When We Get Slap Happy.
Thanks for listening to us right now.
Yes, thank you. And then next time on the podcast, we are going to be fully wrapping up this season with our potluck. So find out what cake or something are we going to make.
It'll be a surprise.
Between all of us.
None of us know yet.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Emily, and we're from Whining About Herstory.
Ever notice how women seem to be missed, forgotten, or maybe even purposely left out of history books?
We did, so we decided to take the his out of history and make it herstory.
Each episode, we discuss the lives and general awesomeness of these historical Wonder Women, all while having a glass of wine.
Or maybe a bottle. Come join us on all of your favorite podcast platforms at WAH Pod on Instagram, WAH_pod on Twitter, and at whiningaboutherstory.com. Remember, that's no H or E in whining.
See you
soon.
Cheers!